Welcome back. We're here today on the final lesson of our study on salt and light, the Similitudes. Glad you've hung in here with us to the very end. Today I want to talk about some practical applications and things that we may need to embrace about being the light, or how to have the light of the world work through us. One thing is, God expects us to walk in the light every day. And even though I've kind of touched on that already in some of the previous lessons, it's important for us to understand that we are expected to walk in the light. The Bible says that if we live in the Spirit or walk in the Spirit, we'll not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That's part of that light, when the Spirit of God is leading us, guiding us, directing us, helping us to see and know the truth. It says in Psalm 89:15, "Blessed are the people who know the joyful sound. They walk, O Lord, in the light of your countenance." David wrote additionally in Psalm 119, verse 105, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." So you need the Spirit, you need the Word. Jesus said to them in John chapter 12, "A little while longer the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he's going." I don't know about you, but there have been times when I've gotten up during the night when we had children in the house, and if there happened to be a toy in the floor that I didn't know was there or remember was there, and I stepped on it in the middle of the night on my way to another part of the house, we'll say, it was not a pleasant experience. I heard a Christian comedian, I think it was Mark Lowry, talk about having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He said, "I didn't know 4 o'clock came twice in a day, but when I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go catch a flight, I walked through my house without turning on the light, and I figured out what toes are for. They're for finding furniture in the dark." He's a funny guy. I can't say it quite as good as he does, but that's what happens when you walk in the dark. You stumble, you fall, you get hurt, you run into things. God said, walk in the light while there is light. That's why people work during the day most of the time. Or if they do work a third shift job, they work somewhere where there's light. You've got to have light to be able to function well. Ephesians tells us in chapter 5, "You were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light." I believe that it's so easy to get used to the dark. Sometimes when you sit still for a while in the darkness, you begin to be able to make out shapes. You might even think, wow, it's a lot more light out here than I thought it was. But in actuality, you try to run in the dark, you try to do your normal work in the dark, you're not going to be as efficient. You might, if you try to draw or put something together or tie a bow on a package, and you do that in the dark, you're going to look at it later and say, wow, I messed that up because I did it in the dark. Don't let your life be done in the dark. Instead, live in the light. When you do things in the light, even though you get used to the dark, it's still the dark. It's the same way with sin. When you get used to sin, sin is no longer sin to you, but it's still sin in the eyes of God. You can sear your conscience. You can lose touch with what is real when you get used to the dark. I think that it's so very, very important that we make a distinction between light and dark, and that we practically walk in the light all the time. Because in the light, you can run, you can make progress, you can work faster, you can work more efficiently, you can get things done. Now, I'm telling on myself here, but now that I'm no longer as young as I used to be, and I'll leave my age out of it right now, but now that I'm not as young as I used to be, I have to have a little more light to be able to read small print. I have to hold it at a certain length away from me, but if there's plenty of light and I can get it in focus, I can read it still. It's the same way with life. Get it in focus and walk in the light, and you'll be able to see everything you need to see more clearly. One last thing, not only does God want us to walk in the light, He wants us to be the light. He said in Matthew 5, verses 14, "You are the light of the world." He doesn't just say that you are part of the light or that you are in the light. He says you are the light. Why are we the light? Because the light is in us. He talks about in one place, if you believe in Him, out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. But he also here says, you are the light of the world. Don't hide it. Don't put it under a basket, but set it up on a lampstand and it'll give light to the whole house. Well, there are three things that I think we need to look at here real quickly. Practical applications for our living every day. First off, there is a calling. Verse 14 says, you are the light of the world. Tag, you're it. This is not an option. This is not something that you can do if you feel like it. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Secondly, though, it talks about our position. Where do we need to be with this light? We can't be under a basket. We've got to be on the lampstand. We've got to display this light, show this light, let it shine everywhere we go. And then finally, verse 16 talks about our commission. He not only shows us our calling in verse 14, our position in verse 15, but in verse 16, he says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Your calling is that you are the light. Your position should be that you are on display, showing the light to everyone, who, especially those who are living in darkness. And your commission is to let your light shine before men that they may glorify your Father. I don't know if you've ever had one of those oil lamps, but after a while of burning, it can get a little smudgy on the sides. It can get clouded, dark. You have to then take the lamp off after you've put out the light for a moment. Take the lamp off, take a cloth inside and clean it out real good, and make sure that when you light that lamp, that the light can shine through. I think that's an analogy of sin. You've got to make sure that you keep your vessel clean, because a sullied lamp cannot emit much light. But a clean glass will shine through brightly and bring warmth, health, and healing to those around. Let your light so shine before men that they can see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Well, let me give you just a closing thought here before we go to the discussion questions. What we see here are two examples of how the Christian is to live in this world. Salt works quietly and does not make a big deal about what it does. It just works effectively, quietly. Light, on the other hand, draws attention to itself. Perhaps salt is the admonition to let your lifestyle slowly and quietly infiltrate your surroundings, working on others by example. Whereas light may be the effort to proclaim the greatness of God and the gospel message with words and deeds. When should we do each? Well, the truth is that many times when we want to be quiet, we should shine forth the praises of God. And when we feel like speaking our mind, perhaps we should remain quiet. Either way, God has called us to be witnesses and to have influence in our world. The question you might want to ask yourself is, am I being salt? Am I being light? Are we influential in the world? Or are we simply minding our own business and not worrying about the salt and light admonition of these similitudes? Let your light so shine. Be the salt of the earth. Infiltrate your surroundings and turn on the light of Jesus Christ wherever you go and whatever you do. Thanks again for being part of this study. I hope you've gotten something out of it. Give us some feedback. Go to kcog.org and send us a message and let us know how you felt about salt and light. Characteristics of kingdom members, the similitudes. I believe that if we take these messages to heart, God is going to use us to make a difference in our world.